All right, so today I just wanted to talk to you guys about the option of enlisting in the Army before joining ROTC. So in the Army, there's the officer side and the enlisted side. The officers lead the enlisted, and you can only become an officer through OCS or doing ROTC. So let's say after you graduate high school, you're not really ready to go to college yet, or you're not sure about ROTC, but you really like the military. A great option is to enlist. So right after the only thing you don't need to go to college or anything to enlist. You can just go straight in right after high school or even with the GED. So uh, basically, what you can do is if you don't want to go into the Army full time, you can enlist into the Reserve and National Guard component, which is you train once a weekend, once a month, and then 2 to 3 weeks, depending on your unit in the summer. So and then also if the Army needs you, you're in a deployable status at any time, so they can pull you out for like a 6 month or 9 month deployment if you're needed somewhere or in a time of war. But essentially, say your senior year of high school, you applied for the RTC scholarship, you didn't get it, or you just think you're not ready for college, a great option would be to enlist. And like I said, you don't have to enlist full time, you can enlist in the National Guard. So you go to basic training, you go to advanced individual training, and then you're just in the reserve component, which is you'll find a unit in whatever state you'd like, then just do the 1 week in a month. So from an individual standpoint, I just think there's a lot of benefits. I'm a supporter of taking a year off between your freshman year of college and your senior year of like after you graduate high school, taking a year off. Like don't go straight in college. I didn't go straight in. I did what's called a postgraduate year, fifth year of high school at a boarding school. And I think taking that year off before you go to college, it kind of just helped. Sorry, it kind of just helps to mature you in a way. So I went into my freshman year in college at 19 years old. So I was just kind of at that point I was ready to settle down, just hit the grind in college, and I felt like I just felt more ready for it. So basically, with enlisting right after high school, you can join that summer, take 5 to 6 months of training, base training, AIT. You take off your first semester of college, or you can just take that full year off. And at basic training, you'll just be around a lot of adults. You'll be in an intense environment. You're in an Army environment. You kind of get a break from, say, if you didn't like high school, you kind of get a break from the whole academic thing. You just focus on the Army training. And I think it's just like a great way to mature you and make you feel like more of an adult as you enter college. I just think you'll be a little more of a kind of an adult-like person. Like this isn't all 18-year-olds, it's just some. Some 18-year-olds graduate high school and they're fully matured and ready to go into college, and they know what they want, and that's great. But that's not all of us. That wasn't me. Um, anyway, so from a military standpoint, there's a lot of great benefits to doing ROTC before you to enlisting before you join ROTC. So if you spend that time at basic training and AIT before you join ROTC, you kind of have a greater base of knowledge than a lot of your peers. So like I showed up at military school and joined ROTC, and I didn't know anything prior to joining, but I had peers who did enlist before, and they just kind of had a greater base knowledge than I did. They weren't playing catch up in the way I had to. They knew a lot of the basic Army disciplines and functions. They knew how the Army works. They knew the ranks. So while I had to spend time just like studying and learning these new essential military disciplines, they were already there. So they could apply that time elsewhere to learn other things. Um, Also, a great thing is that through ROTC, you're learning how to lead people, lead the enlisted as an officer. But if you spend time on the enlisted, you can. I think you have a little bit of leverage as a leader because you spend time kind of in those lower enlisted positions. You know, like what leaders you liked, what leaders you didn't like, and then you can kind of form your leadership style based upon those experiences. It's like I've never been in a position where I was a private in the Army, so it's kind of harder for me to relate, and that's something I have to work harder for as an officer now to make sure I can employ empathy for those men and make sure I'm taking care of them in the right way. Also, too, when you join Army ECP ROTC, you have to enlist in the National Guard anyway when you get there. So when you contract in ROTC, if you're not already in the National Guard, you have to enlist. And as a cadet, you're still doing the 1 week in a month. Um, yeah, but if you enlist, you'll already have a unit, and then the good thing is you can say you enlisted in the Army in Pennsylvania, and then you go to school. I went to New Mexico Military Institute. You can transfer over to a unit in New Mexico, so you're flexible in that sense, and you just transfer your unit right over, and you'll save time because you already did MEPS and everything required to get enlisted. So like I had to take time during school to travel to Texas from New Mexico to enlist, but you already have covered that whole process, so it's another way you can save time. Also, say you're worried about say you're fine with doing the 1 week in a month and then the weeks in the summer, but you're like I do not want to get deployed with the Army, like I'm not ready for that or whatever. Once you join ROTC and contract in ROTC, you've now entered into a non-deployable status. So you do basic training, you do AIT, go into ROTC, and then contract as soon as possible into the program, and then your unit cannot deploy you. So you'll have your 4 years of college then locked in where you will not get sent anywhere if you're really uncomfortable with the idea of getting deployed from the ages of like 18 to 22 or 23. Also, last thing, say you enlist in the Army, whatever job you say you enlist in the infantry, and you do base training, you do AIT, and you're like, wow, I really hate this job. Like, this is miserable. Once you contract in an RTC, you can change your unit to something different than the infantry, and then when you commission as an officer, you'll be able to choose a different branch than maybe what you enlisted as. So you could go kind of experiment and test the waters with a job you think you may like, and then see if you like it or not. Because if you don't, then like I said, if you enlisted as an infantry and then you realize you don't like it, you can then commission as a logistics officer or an artillery officer and change your route and your plan kind of. So it gives you a little more flexibility in that end in case like you feel like your recruiter kind of misled you or misguided you or you didn't do your research or you think you wanted something but you actually don't. Just like a little kind of a little something to ease your mind. And then so my recommendation is I have two books I'm gonna put in the link kind of to read. They're a little bit of basic books, but it's one of those things where knowledge is power, in my opinion. So there's Joining the U.S. Military, Everything You Need to Know Your Recruiter Won't Tell You, and this is by Kevin W. Porter. So I'd recommend, you don't have to read the whole thing, but before you go talk to a recruiter in an Army office, if you're planning on listing, before you join ROTC, kind of just covers like a wide range of topics of questions you should be asking and things you should be thinking about before you join the Army. And it's just, I don't know, a little more knowledge you can go into instead of just joining on a whim like some people right out of high school and then they show up at basic training. They're like, wow, I really hate this. And I made a mistake. And then another thing, if you're really committed to joining ROTC, there's a book called the Ultimate ROTC Guidebook, and this is by David Atkinson, and he wrote it when he was second lieutenant. I think he published it in like 2007, but he kind of has a story like similar to mine where he just joined ROTC without any prior knowledge and then kind of worked his way up to the top and commission and everything. And it's just a bunch of like tips and guides and anecdotes about how you can just kind of be really successful in ROTC. So I would definitely look into getting both of these books. Like I said, I'll put the link in the bio for you guys. But yeah, just definitely do your research and ask the necessary questions. And that's why I'm kind of made this channel for you guys so I can help you and expand your knowledge and maybe inform your decision making progress process a little better. All right, that's it for today. Thank you guys.